food can also be broken down in the absence of oxygen. And when food breaks down without oxygen, then that kind of respiration is called anaerobic respiration. Anaerobic respiration means breaking down of food in the absence of oxygen. The organisms which can do so are called anaerobes. You see, all the microorganisms like bacteria and yeast, not all bacteria, but many of the bacteria can be anaerobic. Yeast certainly is an anaerobe because it can break down food in the absence of oxygen. Like if you take a food solution like grape juice or any fruit juice and introduce yeast, it will produce alcohol and carbon dioxide. And that is why yeast is used in so many purposes. For example, it is used for making wine in breweries, and a little of yeast is also used in cooking because it produces carbon dioxide, which makes the food product to be spongy and soft, as in the case of role of baking powder in making Indian dishes like dhokla, idli or cakes and pastries or bread. So, there it is the carbon dioxide role which is more important because that gets trapped in the dough and so it becomes fluffy on baking or steaming. And in the case of breweries, it is the wine which is the important part, the ethyl alcohol which is produced, which is then of course distilled and we use it as various beverages like beer and other alcoholic forms like whiskey or rum, right. And this anaerobic respiration can also take place in higher organisms like human beings, but of course for a very limited period. The reason is that the energy released during anaerobic respiration is not sufficient. It is much less than that of aerobic respiration. And secondly, the compound or the products of anaerobic respiration are ethyl alcohol and carbon dioxide, which is poisonous or toxic. So, this gets accumulated and then it can be harmful. In fact, when we do exercise, physical exercise or a very vigorous exercise, then what happens is in our muscles, the carbohydrates or the glucose breaks down without oxygen into lactic acid. It does not form even ethyl alcohol and carbon dioxide. This is an incomplete or partial breakdown of food and lactic acid is formed. This lactic acid gets accumulated in the muscles and what do we get? We get cramps, right. So, you can say that when anaerobic respiration takes place in the muscles, lactic acid is produced. Lactic acid produced gets accumulated and causes cramps. Another thing can be that when glucose breaks down without the oxygen, as in the case of yeast, then we get alcohol plus carbon dioxide. And this alcohol can be used for making wine and this carbon dioxide is used for making products like bread, cakes, etc. So, you see how human beings use even natural phenomenon for their own advantage. The anaerobic respiration shown by microbes like yeast has been used both for breweries as well as bakeries. Now, this was the story of anaerobic respiration. Aerobic respiration takes place in the presence of oxygen. and the products are glucose plus oxygen gives us carbon dioxide and water. Obviously, water is not harmful like that of ethyl alcohol or lactic acid. This is called complete breakdown of food, and also there is release of energy which is much more than that of anaerobic respiration. That is why human beings and other higher animals require aerobic respiration, and the reasons are: first, more energy is released; second, products are not toxic; and when it takes place, then lactic acid is produced, and which can cause cramps because it is toxic.